I don't think that if I don't like disparities, get busy. This is what I want to say to my fellow African Americans. You don't like the disparities? You don't like the wealth gap? Start a business. You don't think there's enough black engineers? Okay, let's study some calculus. Let's get some kids together. We do it on the summer. We'll have a summer camp and we'll do a boot camp on calculus. Kid that can do the integral equation fastest will get a star on this thing and whatever. Get busy. Disparities don't have to be destiny. Just because there's a disparity doesn't mean that we have to accept it as given if indeed we want better for ourselves and for our people. But don't be looking outside of the community for society or white people or whatever to solve that problem for you.
So I'm guessing, well, of course you know of and probably know Thomas Sowell, but the book Discrimination versus Disparities, I mean, he goes into this a lot. So what do we do about the disparity stuff? For those that understand what you're saying, that are saying, okay, the system's not racist, meaning there are no racist laws against black people, but that want to acknowledge that these disparities exist. Where do you start with the disparities? Because we can't even get there.
Well, if you follow Thomas Sowell, I do know him not that well, although I've just joined as a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, so I'm going to get to know him better.
I'll add that to the bio for next time.
I just signed on. I haven't even been set foot on the campus yet, but nice, I'm looking forward to it. But if you follow Thomas Sowell, he would say it's a fool's errand to think that you're ever going to get rid of all the disparities. He would say, look at the ethnic Chinese in Indonesia and the Philippines and Southeast Asia. He said, look at them. They're business people. They are wealthier. They are better educated. They're over. He would say, look at the Sinhalese and the Tamil in Sri Lanka. He would say, look at the Lebanese in West Africa. He would say, look at the Jews pretty much everywhere. He would say, there is no absence of disparity. The story of ethnic history is disparity. Mm-hmm. So if you set for yourself the goal of getting rid of disparity, this puts it a little sharply, but I think it's not inaccurate. You're buying into tyranny, because the only way to get rid of disparity is to force things to be equal when the natural state of affairs would not have things be equal. What would getting rid of disparity in the NBA mean, or the NFL? I mean, well, we know what it would mean. It would mean a lot of Chinese point guards, and it would be a lot less interest. That's a cheap shot. I know. I mean, that was easy for me to say.
You're going to my weakest, man. I got a basketball right behind me, 45 with the blown out ACL in my left knee, but that's what I'd rather be doing than this.
Oh, okay. You were good, huh?
I was
in your
right.
day.
Yeah.
All right. But so Sowell would say, don't expect that there's not going to be disparities. I would agree with that, but I would go further. I don't think that if I don't like disparities, get busy. This is what I want to say to my fellow African Americans. You don't like the disparities? You don't like the wealth gap? Start a business. You don't think there's enough black engineers? Okay, let's study some calculus. Let's get some kids together. We do it on the summer. We'll have a summer camp and we'll do a boot camp on calculus. Kid that can do the integral equation fastest will get a star on this thing and whatever. Get busy. Disparities don't have to be destiny. Just because there's a disparity doesn't mean that we have to accept it as given if indeed we want better for ourselves and for our people. But don't be looking outside of the community for society or white people or whatever to solve that problem for you, especially when our families are in disarray, especially when the behavior of some people, a few in our communities, makes life absolutely impossible for anybody else to function there because of the violence and the chaotic behavior and whatnot, especially when the TV can be turned off and the kid can be directed to do his homework or hers. That's a part of the parental responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. I don't mean to be putting people down. I just mean to say our fate, this is my argument, is substantially within our own hands. So if you don't like the disparities, get busy.
Disparities aren't destiny. That's a title for a book right there. You got it. That's the next book you got to write. Within all that, you're talking about the family, and then Sowell also talks about how when the welfare state really kicked in the 70s, that in essence it blew apart the black family. But even talking about this, people will not be kind.
Yeah, well, you got two things going. You got feminism. So what I mean is you have a revolution in political, social attitudes around the roles of women and about the sort of legitimacy of conventional two-parent arrangements and stuff like that. So I don't want to just put it all on the women. The sexual morality ideas have changed, gay rights and stuff like that. I mean, it's a different world than it was 50 years ago. And that has worked against, I think, the job of mending the Black family. I put it in those terms. People will get upset. But what I mean is if 70% of babies born to a Black woman are born to a woman without a husband, this is not a healthy state of affairs for the community. That has consequences in terms of the human development of those youngsters. Boys need fathers. Girls need fathers too. Adolescent boys with the testosterone flowing need discipline. They need fathers. They need examples of what it means to live rightly as a man in the world. In the absence of that, you're going to get the kind of chaos that you're seeing. So you've got that the social liberals, the people who want to rewrite the rules, will object to invoking tradition in this context. The other piece you've got is we had a war on poverty and poverty won. That would be, that's what Charles Murray said in that classic book of his, Losing Ground. That's what Thomas Sowell is saying when he points out the ill effects of the welfare state. And on the other side of that is the Democratic Party and the liberal political establishment and whatnot, who believe that the transfers from the welfare state can do no harm. There are no incentive problems. Now, if you tell a woman that, she can get by on it's not a good living. Welfare is not a good living, but it is money coming from the state. And you think that doesn't affect her behavior. Well, again, I'm an economist. Of course, it does affect her behavior. So I don't know that I want to declare war on Medicaid or food stamps. These are established programs. There are hundreds of billions of dollars going out the federal door. But there are families that need these benefits. I think we've gone far enough down this road now that it's hard to imagine going back. But as a historical analysis, I think part of the weight has to be laid at the feet of the structure of African-American family life in the year 2021 has to be laid at the feet of those who didn't listen when they were warned about the ill effects of transfer programs on the incentives that people had. So speaking of those who didn't listen, you mentioned the social liberals. Now, I'm guessing at Brown University, politically, you are an outsider. You're surrounded by a lot of liberals, although I wouldn't say they're old school liberals at this point. You're probably surrounded really by a bunch of leftists. But do you find that some of your old school socially liberal, say classical liberal colleagues, if any remain, kind of on the DL are like, yeah, Glenn, you're right about all this stuff, but I don't want them showing up at my house? Yes, not quite those words, but pretty much that attitude. A lot of people, there's a lot of different stuff going on. Some people are religious and they're in the closet. They actually believe in God. They pray, they read the Bible and they won't talk about it. Some people have misgivings. They're not sure, but they know that the wind is blowing so strong in the other direction. But I'll tell you, I've been encouraged by some of my students here at Brown, which is notorious for being an ultra-liberal bastion. And certainly we've got plenty of that. But there are students around here who are hungry for something different. And I've found them, coming to some of my classes and coming around to talk to me privately. I'm not saying that they would have voted for Donald Trump. They would have never done that. I'm not saying that they're pro-life. They're not. They're pro-choice. They're pro-gay marriage and all that kind of stuff. But I am saying that they find some of the concerns that I've been expressing around these issues to resonate with them. And some of them are religious, and they will come and they will say, and I must say, I'm not myself personally a professing Christian at this point in my life. I used to be very strongly. I was baptized at the age of 40. It's a long story. I'll tell it in my memoir. Stay tuned. But I'm open to people who are overt about expressing their faith, and I have deep respect for this challenge that we all face as sentient beings of contemplating the ultimate questions of existence. And there are no easy answers to those ultimate questions. So I find that in some of my students. I'm just saying Brown is not one thing. We have a reputation, deservedly so, but it's a complicated and interesting community here. And I do find like minds both amongst my colleagues and students.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.